Hey there. Hello and welcome to another edition of How to Survive a Podcast. The infrequent but ongoing podcast that teaches you exactly what you should not, can and cannot do in order to make the podcasting experience an enjoyable and memorable one. This podcast, as well as others on our network, are brought to you by the realm of five. Like, comment, subscribe, notify, share. Those five independent actions help bring our podcasts and content to more people, into more lives, and hopefully make your life a little bit better. And now, on with the show. On a previous episodes of How to Survive a Podcast, you've been taught podcasting etiquette and do's and don'ts, or how to be called back. Today, I want to talk to you a little bit about the podcast basement. What it is, and more importantly, how not to wind up there. Now remember, everything about the podcasting world is all about profit. All of it. And your experiences in the podcasting realm will feed into the for-profit model. How you survive it pretty much goes into how to survive it pretty much just goes into what you can and can't do, what you should and shouldn't do, and what you do and what you don't do. And the objective in that instance is simply to make it to the end of the show. That's it. Making it to the end of the show and getting asked to come back on. Let's delve into the podcast basement. What is it? The podcast basement is the place that you go to or you're sent to when you run afoul of the podcast guidelines. Every podcast, and I mean every podcast, has rules of engagement. What a podcast slash moderator slash host will tolerate, what they expect, how they want you to act, and more importantly, how they don't want you to act. The rules vary from podcast to podcast. And they boil down to 3, maybe 4 rules. one, respect the platform. That is the most important rule that you'll ever come across in the podcasting world. And its meaning is simple. Don't do anything that is going to bring disrespect and or shame to a podcast. There are many different flavors of that rule, in that there are many different ways you can go about either doing it or not doing it. But they all boil down to that rule. The second rule that a podcaster will tell its viewers slash guests, whatever you want to call them, is don't overtalk the moderator. Simple. And they go to the realm of things we've talked about in previous podcasts. Be concise, clear, and to the point. And also, I'll say, be brief. And your first answer to a question posed to you on a podcast, it should take no more than maybe 10, 15 seconds. It should be clear. There should be no of having to wonder what the person was talking about. It's clear, concise, to the point. Example. Do men today feel that the women today are wifey material? That is the question. Panelist 1, yes. Panelist 2, no. Panelist 3, it all depends. It depends on blah, 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 blah. Two of those answers were correct. Excuse me. And I'm not meaning that the answers are correct in its framing of the sentence. The answers are correct because they were clear, concise, to the point, and brief. Now, in the case of the second one, where the answer was no, the podcaster may then say, what do you mean that? What do you mean by that? Please explain. Now, you've been given the go-ahead to answer the question. You've been given the green light to expound upon the answer. So you can get as deep or as superficial, however you want to do it. You can be as in-depth, or you can go as deep as you want, in other words. Please explain. I think that men and women today, men don't look at it this way because of the stats, statistics, and data. Blah, 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 et cetera, so forth, so on, so on. They made great strides in this, that, and the third. However you want to answer that question, once they ask you for more detail, for more information, more details, explain yourself, elucidate, elaborate. Now you can get into it. But the moderator has asked you to. Now, there are sometimes where, excuse me, there are some times where the moderator will allow a guest to elaborate right after giving his answer. I advise against that. And the reason why I advise against that is because on a simple yes or no question, the answer is either positive or negative. It's yes or it's no. There's no need to further elaborate unless the podcaster asks you to. So as long as he doesn't ask you to, don't do it. The next one is be mindful of your guests. That ties into the other two because if you're mindful of your guests, you want to treat them with the respect that you want to be treated. Therefore, your interactions of them will be, if not pleasant, at the very least, they'll be cordial. You don't have to be best friends with another guest in the panel. But you should be respectful. I'll say that again. You don't have to be pleasant. You don't have to be friendly with another member of the panel. But you do need to be respectful. Being respectful doesn't mean that you're being agreeable. What it does mean is that you understand that they have an opposing viewpoint. It may be different from yours, but you respect their position. The fourth rule of podcast etiquette ties directly into the third of the three, in the sense that don't be contrary. Now, what do I mean by that? People who tend to argue for the sake of arguing tend to be contrary. The sky is blue. No, it's green. What makes you say that? What? I don't think I understood you. Could you please explain that further? They go around the houses. They bring up things that weren't even discussed. And then they top it off by putting it on them. Well, me personally, no. One thing that you should try very, very hard to not do is to make things personal. Fact. Podcasting hot topics are general topics. They're general. Now, does that mean they're good for everybody all the time? Of course not. You will always find an exception, an outlier, an individual tale that goes contrary to what the podcaster is saying. Now, unless the podcaster says to you, in your own opinion, how do you feel about XYZ? Now, if they say that, then you can use that because they're asking you for your own opinion. However, if they ask you that question, be ready to defend it because they ask the question because they already know what the answer should be and you're not answering that way. And they want to know why. So you don't want to do that. As stated earlier, the major goal in the first instance of surviving a podcast is to survive it. You don't want to be the person whose clip goes viral. Because if you are, it's not a good look for you. The podcaster, on the other hand, they love it. And the more money motivated they are, the more they love it. And they love it because they're going to get more eyeballs, more clicks, more views, more subscribers. There is a formula that podcasters tend to like to use or ascribe to or base their podcasting around it to a certain degree. And that is entertainment. Entertain your viewer. Make them laugh. Make them cry. Make them get angry. Make them wonder. Make them wonder. Make them do something. Because if a podcaster's bottom line is entertainment, it can be educational. It can be insightful. It can be informative. All those things. And many more that I'm probably not even thinking about at the moment. It can be those things. But at its heart, it has to be entertaining. And the best way to be entertaining, and this is going to be something that we're going to talk about in the future installment, but it needs to be confrontational. A podcast with 3 or 4 people on it that share the same viewpoint isn't as entertaining, isn't as exciting, isn't as isn't as excuse me. A podcast with 2 or 3 people that have the same viewpoint doesn't have the same impact as a podcast who have 3 or 4 people with dissenting views. Remember the words of Eric Bischoff, as I've said in previous podcasts. Controversy sells. And because controversy sells, you want to see how many times you can do a podcast that is controversial. And controversy a lot of times can breed confrontation. And confrontation can be a double-edged sword. It can swing one way and then swing back another way. I want to take this time to give a shout out to the host of Just Pearly Things, Pearl. She did a podcast either yesterday or today. I saw it earlier today, in which she talked about kicking off a guest. Now, up to that point, I may have had maybe once, maybe twice in the time, but for the most part, she doesn't kick people off. And her way of getting people off is more subtle than Myron from Fresh and Fit. He will build and build and build, and you will hear his voice change, and he'll start saying things, and he'll start saying things again and again and again, and then get off. Pearl will be on the podcast, and she'll start saying things, and all of a sudden, all right, enough, get out. Go. And this action brings into focus another action that you should never, ever, ever do. And that is badmouth the host. 2 reasons. First reason, it totally closes the door on you being allowed on a future podcast. Totally kills it. If there was a chance of you getting on, it's gone now. And secondly, and more importantly, in order to do that, you have to have some sort of correspondence. In the case of Pearl and the girl that got cut off yesterday, the guy asked off the show, she left a multi-part rant. That right there, before we even get into it, that's a no-no. That's all hell no. Because you've given them fuel. Now you are the butt of the joke. And I'm gonna give you game right here, right now. People on a podcast that tend to exhibit negative traits are tolerated. You can be contrary. You can be disagreeable. You can want things your own way. You can be confrontational. But you have to do it in a way that doesn't get you kicked off the show. I'll say that again. You can be argumentative, you can be disagreeable, you can be contrary, all those good things. But you have to do it in a way that doesn't get you kicked off the show. And when you are disagreeable, okay, I'll give you a classic example. Destiny. He's been on most of, if not all, the major red pill manosphere podcasting platforms. He's a self-proclaimed blue pillar. He's plugged into the matrix. He is disagreeable. He is argumentative. He is contrary. All those things. But he's constantly being asked to be on other people's shows. Why? Two reasons. First reason is good content. Remember, controversy sells. So you want to be somebody who likes to bring up other points. But the other one, and more importantly, he may be those things, but he's respectful. He says his thing, he says his piece, and then he's quiet. He doesn't overtalk. He doesn't interject. The few times I've actually heard him interject or overtalk are because he's trying to make a point and other people start talking. But even then, he does it so that it comes off as, okay, he's over talking, but I can see why. You don't have to agree with him. I don't. But I respect him because he espouses another viewpoint and he articulates it because he's passionate about it. Surviving a podcast. The art of surviving a podcast, because it is an art, means if not following to the letter, understanding what goes on, what's expected, and what's tolerated. The one thing I highly recommend that everybody, regardless of what viewpoint you may take, enjoy yourself. Have fun. Just Be mindful of having the fun and make sure it's not at someone else's expense. Excuse me. And that will wrap up this installment of How to Survive a Podcast. Before we go, though, and before we delve into the realm of five, we at Rainy Day Jazzy Groove Podcast want to thank you for tuning in and listening. And we want to thank you by doing something we don't do very often. And that's have an open call for people to be on a future podcast episode. And to do that, all you have to do is in your favorite email client, send a letter to podcasts@groovetunes, groovetunez.tk. In the subject line, type in, I want to be on the show. And in the body, tell us what show you want to be on. This is a first come, first served basis. We're going to pick 3 people per show. So it's going to be about 15 people in total in the beginning. Once you get the go ahead to be on the show, just keep in mind those things that we discussed earlier. And if you follow those rules, especially the do's and the don'ts, you're going to have a really good time, have lively, spirited, and fun debates, and maybe, just maybe, it could be the start of something good for you. Who knows? You might be hosting one of these podcasts one day. Something to think about. And as always, we move in the realm of 5. Like the video. 1 second. Free. And the most important metric that YouTube uses for the algorithm to push our content out to more and more people. Comment. Good, bad, or indifferent. Let us know what you think. If you have a critique, if you have a comment, if you have praise, if you have criticisms, if you have ideas, put them in the comment section below. As we stated again and again and again, we can't grow if we don't know. That's simple. You putting in your feedback in the comment section helps us grow. Subscribe. Okay, I like this. I can rock with this. Are there any other videos I can watch? Hitting the subscribe button opens up all of our content for you to peruse at your discretion, at your leisure. And if that's not enough, notify via the notification button. This will allow you to be in the know when we have new content. You'll be one of the first to know when new content is being ready for premiere. And lastly, but not leastly, share. You like it. Hands down, you can't get enough of it. If you like it, chances are that there's somebody in your friend circle who would like it too. Share the love. Spread the love. Share the link. Share the video. And encourage them to likewise share the video. We're playing the numbers game here. If you spread it to 10 people, chances are at least 2 will watch it. Doesn't sound very good until you started scaling up. Every 10 is 2, so for 20 there's 4. For 40 there's 6. By the time you get to 100, there's about 25, 30 people. And it scales upwards. So why not share it? All of those actions, and I can't stress this enough, all of those actions are free. They cost you nothing. Five, maybe 10 minutes out of your day to show your love and support for hopefully who's going to be one of your favorite content creators. And once again, if you have an idea, let us know. Put in the comments, I like your stuff. Why not try this? Why not try that? Have this one on your show. Have that one on your show. Go here. Go there. Do this. Do that. Don't do this. Don't do that. Those things are taken very seriously. And if you want to go even further than that, you can always donate. CashApp, PayPal, and Venmo links are below. Every little bit helps. And all donations, in addition to being mentioned on air in a future episode, are going to go for things that will make this experience even more enjoyable. So, if you can do that, please do. And with that, this is OBJ, your humble, gracious, and highly favored host, saying thank you, one and all, for allowing us to entertain you this evening, or this afternoon, or this morning, wherever you listen, whenever you listen. Thank you. Be safe out there. We want to see you again. Peace out. And enjoy the rest of your day. Bye now.